So yesterday you learned how to divide polynomials by monomials. Today you're learning how to divide polynomials by binomials. So remember, this is when you have two terms on the bottom that you're dividing by. And these are different from yesterday because for this, you can't just divide your numerator by each term on the bottom. For these, there's two steps that you're going to follow. So the first one would be to factor your numerator. And then once you've factored your numerator, then you'll cancel out your common factor. Which means, so to start these, so like I said, so you're going to factor the numerator. So you'll do, that's a trinomial up there. And there's not a GCF. You can factor out the numerator first because there's nothing you can factor out from the 3, the -1, the -10. So you can just do a times c first there. Okay. I was going to write the different color. Okay, so a times c. So if you multiply a times c here, so you'll get -30. So you'll need factors of -30 that would add to give you -1 there. So you'll need a positive and a negative there that would multiply to give you -30. So you'll use -6 and 5 because they would add to give you -1. So those are the two that you can sub in here, and then you can factor by grouping next. So remember, so your 3b squared will stay, so you can write that first here. So you'll have your 3b squared. And then you can sub in your two factors that you're subbing here. So then you'll have -6b and then plus the 5b. And then -10 there. And then remember, you're grouping your first two terms and then your last two terms. So 3b squared minus 6b. So your GCF for both of those will be a 3b that you can factor out to start. So you can write 3b and then start your parentheses. And then you're figuring out 3b times what will give you the 3b squared. So that'll be a v. And then 3b times what will give you the -6b. So that'd be -2 then. And then you can figure out your GCF for your last two terms there. So for the 5b minus 10, so your GCF for those two will be a 5, and you can't take any variables with it. You can just write plus 5 next, because they're already the right signs. And then 5 times v will give you 5v, and then 5 times -2 will give you the -10. Remember, these two factors have to match there. They're both v minus 2, so that's good. So then you can write this the best way here. So you'll have 3v plus 5, and then your v minus 2 as your factors, and n. So that would be your factored form of your numerator here. That's just another way to write the same thing that was up top in your fraction. So that's what your numerator is there, and then your denominator is the v minus 2. So I'm just going to put the v minus 2 on the bottom. Okay, so we factored the numerator. We did step 1. For step 2 with these, you'll cancel out the common factors here. So you have v minus 2 that you're dividing by itself. So pretty much when you divide by itself, you'll get 1. These will cancel out. So your answer here is whatever factor's left. So this will be your 3v plus 5 for the final answer here then. So that'd be your answer there then. So right, so the ones you did yesterday, if you just had one term on the bottom, you could just divide each of your two terms by your denominator. But if you have two terms on the bottom, this is when you have to factor the numerator. So for the next one here, so this says if x is not equal to 4/3, find the quotient of 9x squared minus 9x minus 4 and 3x minus 4. So but let's ignore this to start. I'm going to write this as a fraction to start. So this wants you to find the quotient of 9x squared minus 9x minus 4. So I'll write, like I said, I'm going to write this as a fraction. So it'll be this over that because it wants you to find the quotient of it. So this would be on the top, and then your 3x minus 4 would be on the bottom. And then the reason this says that x is not equal to 4/3 is because if your x were 4/3 there, so 3 times 4/3 would give you 4, and then 4 minus 4 would be 0. So if your x were 4/3, your denominator would be 0, which can't happen because you can't divide by 0. So pretty much you can ignore this. It doesn't help you to like with solving. You can just ignore it. It's just saying that you can't divide by 0 if that were 4/3 there. So then for this one, it'll be like the other one. So you can factor your numerator next. So it's a trinomial there, so you can do a times c because there's not a GCF you can factor out from your numerator to start from these three terms. So you'll do a times c. So you can do negative 4 times 9. So that will give you negative 36. You'll need factors of negative 36 here that would add to give you negative 9 in the middle. So you'll need a positive and a negative there. So you'll use negative 12 and then positive 3. And then you can sub them in and then factor by grouping next. So your first term will stay and then your last one, but you'll rewrite your middle term. And you're ignoring the 3x minus 4 till the end, so you can sub these in then. So you'll have your 9x squared and then minus 12x. And then plus 3x, and then your minus 4 is at the end there. And then you can factor by grouping. So you're figuring out your GCF for your first two terms. So you have 9x squared and 12x. So your GCF there will be 3x. So you can factor out. So you can that first here. And then you can fill in your parentheses. You're figuring out 3x times what will give you the 9x squared. So that will be another 3x. And then you're figuring out 3x times what will give you the negative 12x. So that'd be minus 4 then. And then you can group your last two terms. You'll figure out your GCF for the 3x and the minus 4. So that'll, your greatest, the number that'll go into those would just be a 1. And you can't take a variable from both. So you can write plus 1 next. And then you can fill in your parentheses. So 1 times 3x will give you 3x. And then 1 times negative 4 will give you that. And then you can write your factors the shorthand then. So your parentheses match. That's good. And then, so one of your factors would be 3x plus 1. And then your 3x minus 4. So that's up top of your fraction, and then your 3x minus 4 is in the bottom then. So when you divide the 3x minus 4 by itself, so these two, just like the other one, will cancel here. So you're just left with whatever your other factor is. So it'd be the 3x minus, or 3x plus 1, that'd be your answer then. So for the next one here, so this wants you to simplify if n is not equal to 0, so 16n squared plus 4n, all divided by 4n. This one is different from the others you've done on this sheet here because you just have one term on the bottom there. So for this is like what you saw yesterday. You don't need to factor your numerator here because this is different from the ones you're doing today because you just have one term on the bottom. The ones you're doing today have two terms on the bottom there. So for this is just the stuff that you learned about yesterday, when you can just divide each of those two terms by the 4n. So I'll write it out. So you'll have your 16n squared divided by the 4n, and then your second term. And then remember, you can simplify these. So 16/4 would be 4 over 1, and then you can subtract the x in it here. So 2 minus 1, so you'll have n that'll go up top of the 4 then. And then you can simplify the 4 over 4. So that'd be 1. And then your n's will cancel here. So you'll just have a 1. So that's your answer there. So just make sure you're paying close attention because sometimes you'll have 2 terms on the bottom and then you'll have to factor the top. If you just have 1 term on the bottom, like the ones you did yesterday, you can just go ahead and divide each of the terms on the top part there. Okay, so for your next one here, so this is simplify if n's not equal to -2 here. So this one is going to be like, so you have 2 terms on the bottom. It'll be like the new ones from today. So this is where you're going to factor your numerator. So you can factor your numerator here. So it's a trinomial there. There's nothing you can factor out first. You'll just do a times c to start. These are in a reverse order. I'll just leave them how they are for now, which is fine. And remember, you can ignore this part here. It's just saying that you can't sub by 0 pretty much. So you can do a times c here. So -3 times, so -3 times 8 first. Let's see what you got there. So if you multiply those, then you'll get -24. So you need factors of -24 that would add to be the -2 there. So you'll need a positive and a negative. So this will be -6 and 4 that you'll have to sub in then, because they would multiply to be -24 and then add to be the -2. So then you can sub those in next. You have your 8, and then you're rewriting the -2n. So then you'll have -6n plus 4n. It's like the expanded form of that. And then your last term can stay. And then you can factor by grouping next. So you can figure out your GCF for your first 2 terms there. So 8 minus 6n, so your number GCF there would be a 2 that you can factor out. And you can't take a variable from both terms. So the only thing you can factor out from the first 2 would be a 2. And then you can figure out 2 times 12 will give you the 8. So that'd have to be 4. And then 2 times 12 would give you the -6n. So that'd be -3n. And then you should group your last 2 terms here. So the 4n minus 3n squared. So your number GCF there is a 1. And then you can take an n from both of those 2 terms. You can't take an n squared, just an n. So you can write plus n there, since they were already the right signs to match this. And then you can fill in your parentheses. So n times 4 will give you 4n. And then n times -3n would give you your last term. And then you can write this as short here. So one of your factors would be 2 plus n. And then your other would be 4 minus 3n, because those match and you can bring 1 down. So that's the factor form of your numerator, and then you still have your n plus 2 on the bottom. And then n plus 2, and then 2 plus n, those are the same using the commutative property. So pretty much these will cancel out. And then, so your other factor will be your final answer then, because those will cancel since you're dividing by itself. So you'll have, your answer will be 4 minus 3n for this one then. Okay, so for your next one here, so this one's you to simplify. So you're dividing x squared minus 4x plus 3 by x minus 3. So I'll just write this as a fraction to start. So it wants you to divide this by this here. So this will be your numerator, and that's your denominator. And then you can factor your numerator there. So this is a trinomial, and there's nothing you can factor out first. So you can do a times c then. So you're doing 3 times 1. So you'll need factors of 3 that would add to be -4 there. So like two positives would multiply to give you a positive, or two negatives here, but two positives wouldn't add to a negative 4. So you would have to have two negatives that you would use there. And so you need two negative factors. So the only factors of 3 that are negative would be -1, -3 then. So those are the two you can use. And then usually, remember, you can sub those in and then factor by grouping, but your coefficient's 1 here, so you can actually use the shortcut way instead of doing it all the long way here. So one of your factors is -1, so you know one of your final answers in the end would be x minus 1. So you know one of your final factors will be x minus 1, and then your other will be x minus 3. So that's up top, and then your x minus 3 is still on the bottom there. And then these will cancel with each other. So your answer in the end be x minus 1. And for the very last one, so this wants you to find the quotient of 6x squared plus 11x plus 5 and 6x plus 5. So I'd write this as a fraction like the others you did to start then. So your 6x squared, your first term will be your numerator there, and then this will be on the bottom then. And then since you have a trinomial there, so this is where you can do a times c to start. So you can multiply these two. So 6 times 5. So you multiply those, you'll get 30. So here you would need factors of 30 that would add to give you 11. And you'll need two positive factors. So you'll have to use 6 and 5 there. And then your coefficient 6 here, so you can't use the shortcut way like the one we just did. So you'll have to sub them in, and then you can factor by grouping. So that'll stay, and then you can rewrite your middle term. So it'll be plus 6x plus 5x. And then you can group your first two terms and then your last two. So for the 6x squared plus 6x, your number GCF there will be 6, and you can take an x from both of those also. So you'll have your 6x on the outside of the parentheses then. And then you're figuring out 6x times what will give you the 6x squared. So that would have to be just an x there. So you'll have x plus, and then 6x times 1 will give you the 6x. And then you can group your last two terms there. So you have 5x plus 5. So your GCF for those will be a 5. So you can write plus 5 then. And then you can fill in your parentheses. So 5 times x will give you 5x. And then 5 times 1 will give you the 5 there. And then your parentheses match. So that's good. And then you can write this the short way. So you have 6x plus 5 as one of your answers. And then your x plus 1 is the other one. So that's up top. And then on the bottom would be your 6x plus 1. Or sorry, 6x plus 5. And then your 6x plus 5s will cancel here. So you're just left with your x plus 1 for your final answer then. So just make sure you're paying close attention, because for the ones you did yesterday, that's when you just had one term on the bottom, and you could just divide each of your terms in the numerator by whatever your term was, kind of like one of the ones you did back here, like this one here, since you just have one term there. But if you have two terms in your denominator, that's when you have to factor the top and then cancel one of your common factors there. This sheet you're doing today, it's a mix of both kinds. So the ones you did yesterday just had that kind. So just make sure you're paying close attention for these as to which method you should be using though. And I can help you too. And then also, so these, like the ones you did yesterday, if you want to take a picture instead of typing your answers in, that works too. I don't mind at all, just because that's easier than typing all the complicated stuff. Just let me know if you need help though.